I thought meeting her over and over was a coincidence, until I found a strand of her hair she'd left in a crack in the floorboard, and a slip of paper detailing my entire schedule. That's when she finally smiled and admitted it. From the first day you rented the apartment, I've been living next door. I'm just a guy, an office worker, as painfully average as they come. My biggest goal in life is to own a small slice of the city, a place I never have to leave. But recently, I had to move again. A pipe burst in my old place, and the landlord refused to fix it. The new place is in an old building, but the rent is cheap. After unpacking the last box, I collapsed on the floor. A door creaked open in the hallway. I glanced out instinctively. My new neighbor was heading inside. She was beautiful, long hair, pale skin. She seemed to feel my gaze and suddenly turned, a small smile playing on her lips. I gave a quick nod, my version of hello. The door clicked shut. My heart was beating a little too fast. It was because of that smile. Beautiful, but with an unexplainable chill to it. The next morning, I was rushing to work when I ran into her leaving her apartment. She was wearing a simple blouse and a long skirt, but she still stood out. "Morning," she said, her voice soft. "Morning," I replied, feeling a bit awkward. "Just move in." "Yeah, got here yesterday." "I'm Chloe," she said. "Ethan." The elevator arrived, and we rode down together. The silence was thick, a little strange. Downstairs by the bike racks, I unlocked my bicycle. She walked over to a white sedan. As she drove away, she gave me that same smile again. I merged into the morning traffic, telling myself I was probably overthinking it. She's just a pretty neighbor. That's all. Work got busy, and I forgot all about it. I worked late, not getting home until 10. The hallway lights in the old building were busted. They were supposed to be motion activated, but stamping my foot did nothing. I felt my way up the stairs in the dark. As I fumbled for my keys at my door, a shadow next to me moved. I jumped, just getting home. It was Chloe's voice. She stepped out of the darkness. "Yeah, long day," I said, my heart rate slowing. "What are you doing out here?" "The power's out," she said. "It was too dark inside, so I came out for some air." I mumbled an "no." As I unlocked my door, I could feel her eyes on my back. I flipped the light switch inside my apartment and glanced back without thinking. She was still standing in the darkness, a fuzzy silhouette. Only her eyes seemed to catch the light. I quickly shut the door. I poured myself a glass of water, telling myself to stop being paranoid. Over the weekend, I went to the grocery store to stock up. I was pushing my cart down an aisle when I looked up and saw Chloe. She was in the snack aisle, seriously contemplating a bag of potato chips. I hesitated, wondering if I should say hi. She saw me first. "Small world," she said with a smile. "Yeah," I nodded. "Stocking up." She glanced at my overflowing cart. "Hibernating for the winter." We made small talk for a minute, then went to check out separately. I finished first and was waiting for my Uber outside when I saw her standing across the street, just watching. My ride pulled up and I got in. Looking back through the window, she was still there in the exact same spot. That weird feeling was back. After that, I started seeing her everywhere. In the hallway, downstairs, even at the deli near my office. Every time, she'd smile and say, "Fancy seeing you here." I started to think it wasn't a coincidence, but I couldn't put my finger on it. She never did anything overtly strange, until the day I came home and found a small bag hanging on my doorknob. Inside was a slice of cheesecake and a note. They had a buy one get one free deal. Thought I'd share. The handwriting was neat. I stood there holding the bag, completely baffled. I ended up putting it in the fridge, uneaten. The next day, I ran into her. "How was the cheesecake?" she asked. "It was great, thanks," I lied. She smiled. "Glad you liked it. I'll get you another one next time." I tried to ask around about her. I struck up a conversation with an older woman who was always sitting in the lobby. She said the girl had moved in a little while ago, kept to herself mostly, but was always polite. That's all she knew. "Does she live alone?" I asked. The woman gave me a funny look. Far as I know, I felt a little foolish. Maybe I was just being suspicious. Maybe she was just a friendly person, and I was turning her into some character in a thriller because she was attractive. I decided to just act normal. The next time I saw her, I gave her a proactive nod. She seemed to beam, a little brighter than usual. Sometimes she'd chat a bit more, ask if work was stressful, if I cooked for myself, just normal, neighborly stuff. My company sent me on a 3-day business trip. As I was packing, I heard noises from next door. Sounded like furniture being moved. I didn't think much of it. I got back late at night, exhausted. When I opened my door, I noticed the welcome mat was crooked. Something was underneath it. I lifted it and found a tiny, old keychain. It was rusted and worn. It wasn't mine. Who would leave this here? I threw it away and tried to forget it. The next day I saw Chloe. She looked at me and said, "Have a good trip?" I froze. "How did you know I was on a trip?" She paused for a beat. "Just a guess. Hadn't seen you around for a few days." A seed of real suspicion took root. I started paying attention. She seemed to know my movements too well. But I watched for a week, and she didn't do anything else out of the ordinary. Just the occasional small gift. Some fruit, a pastry. I made excuses to politely decline them all. She never pushed. One day, I deliberately left work early. I parked my car a few blocks away and walked back, hiding out at a small coffee shop across the street from my building. I wanted to see if she would leave. And she did. She came down to throw out her trash. Then she stood at the entrance, looking left and right, like she was waiting for someone. After a few minutes, she went back inside. I waited a little longer before I went home. At my door, I put the key in the lock. It felt gritty, stiff. It was hard to turn. I leaned in for a closer look. There were tiny, fresh scratches around the keyhole. They didn't look like normal wear and tear. A knot formed in my stomach. I went inside and checked my things. Nothing was missing, but the angle of the books on my desk seemed different. I wasn't sure. Maybe I was just losing my mind. I slept badly that night. In the middle of the night, I heard a faint noise. It sounded like it came from next door, or maybe from my own living room. I got up to check. Nothing. I went back to bed, and the next day, I went to work with dark circles under my eyes. I decided to install a security camera, a tiny one, hidden on a bookshelf, aimed at the front door. You couldn't see it unless you were really looking for it. I felt a little better after it was set up. That weekend, I met a friend for a beer. I told him the whole story. He laughed, telling me I was overthinking it. A beautiful neighbor is being nice to you. What's the problem? It just feels weird, I said. Dude, she's probably into you. I shook my head. That feeling I got wasn't attraction. It felt more like surveillance. But I had no proof. I went home slightly buzzed. The camera feed was normal. I showered and went to bed. The next day, I reviewed the footage. Everything was normal through the night. During the day, while I was at work, nothing. I fast-forwarded to the afternoon. Suddenly, the screen filled with static for a few seconds. Then it returned to normal. I frowned. I checked the camera. It wasn't broken. The Wi-Fi was fine. A chill went down my spine. I paid close attention for the next few days. Every day, around 3 p.m., the camera feed would go to static for a few seconds. It was precise, down to the minute. I made up an excuse to go to her apartment. I needed to borrow something. I wanted to see inside her place. She seemed surprised when she opened the door. "Can I help you?" "Hey, can I borrow a wrench? My kitchen faucet is loose." She told me to wait a second and turned to get it. I used the opportunity to peek inside. The apartment was spotless. But on the coffee table in the living room sat a pair of binoculars, pointed at her window, which faced my balcony. She came back with the wrench. "Just bring it back whenever you're done." "No rush," she smiled. As I took it from her, I noticed a faint red mark on her wrist, like she'd been tied up with something. I made sure to return the wrench at night. I brought a box of chocolates as a thank you gift. She opened the door and invited me in. I hesitated for a second, then stepped inside. The binoculars were gone from the coffee table. We chatted about nothing in particular. She asked me where I used to live, why I moved, what I liked, what I hated. It seemed normal, but I always felt like she was listening, really listening. When I was leaving, she walked me to the door. "Come over again soon," she said. I nodded. As I turned, the corner of my eye caught her bedroom door, which was slightly ajar. There was something taped to the wall inside. I couldn't see what it was, but the colors looked familiar. I was sure she had been in my apartment. I decided to set a trap. I taped a single strand of my hair to the inside of the door jamb. It was so fine that if the door opened, it would break. The next day, I came home from work and checked. The hair was gone. My stomach dropped. I checked my belongings. Nothing missing, but a few of my books had been reordered. The items in my fridge had been shifted around. What was she doing in here? I didn't want to confront her. Instead, I quietly had the locks changed, and I added a chain lock. Things were quiet for a few days after I changed the locks. No more weird occurrences. The camera static stopped. I thought she had finally gotten the message. I started to relax. Until the day, it was foggy. I woke up feeling dizzy and disoriented. I noticed my window was open a crack. I distinctly remember locking it the night before. I checked the windowsill. There were smudged footprints. Not my size. They looked like a woman's. I live on a high floor. There's no balcony. How did these footprints get here? A cold sweat broke out on my skin. I went to the building manager and asked to see the security footage. There were cameras in the hallways and the elevator. The manager pulled up the logs. It showed no one entering or leaving my floor that day, except for me and Chloe, coming and going as usual. Maybe you were sleepwalking and opened it yourself, the manager joked. I couldn't laugh. I went home and inspected the window. It was an old sliding window. There was a very narrow ledge outside, but you'd have to be Spider-Man to get over here from anywhere else. The ledge connected to the next apartment, but it was a good 5-foot gap. Impossible to jump, unless you had a death wish. I started seriously thinking about moving. Again, even though I just settled in. This was all too much. As I was browsing apartment listings online, I got a text. Unknown number. Be careful with the windows. My hand trembled. I tried calling the number back. It was disconnected. The next day at work, there was a coffee on my desk. A sticky note on it said, "You look tired." I asked my coworkers who left it. They all said they didn't know. I checked the office security footage. I saw a woman in a baseball cap place on my desk. Her build looked like Chloe's. But how did she get into my office building? I went home early. I was going to confront her, face to face. I knocked on her door. No answer. I waited on the floor outside her apartment. She came home around dusk. She seemed surprised to see me. "Hey, we need to talk," I said, getting to my feet. "About what?" She unlocked her door and let me in. This time, the binoculars were back on the coffee table. I got straight to the point. "Have you been in my apartment?" Her hand, which was pouring a glass of water, paused. "Why would you ask that? Just answer me." "No," she said, looking me straight in the eye. "What about the window?" "What window?" "You still here." Her expression was flawless. "I've been getting strange texts," I said, pulling out my phone to show her. She glanced at it, then shook her head. "I don't know anything about that." "Was the coffee at my office from you?" "No," she said with a small laugh. "You think it was me?" I was at a loss for words. She took a step closer. "Why are you so suspicious of me?" I took a step back. "Because there are too many coincidences." "A coincidence is just fate's way of staying anonymous," she said softly. "This isn't fate," I said. "Then what is it?" She took another step. I caught a faint, sweet scent. My head felt a little fuzzy. "I have to go," I said, turning for the door. She didn't stop me. But as I left, she said from behind me, "Be careful." I decided to move. Immediately, I found a new apartment, signed the lease, paid the deposit. That weekend, I started packing. I tried to be as quiet as possible. I was terrified she would hear. As I was moving the sofa, I lifted the cushions. I found a button underneath. It wasn't mine. It looked exactly like the ones on her blouses. She had definitely been in here, and she'd sat on my sofa. A shiver went through me. I packed faster. The movers were scheduled for Wednesday. I took the day off work. I wanted to move while she was gone. Tuesday night, I did a final sweep of the apartment. I saw something glinting in a crack between the floorboards in my bedroom. I used a pair of tweezers to pull it out. It was a long, brown strand of hair, the same color as hers. Tucked in with it was a tiny, rolled-up piece of paper. I unrolled it. It was a printout, a log of the times I left for work and came home every day, down to the minute. It also listed all the places I frequented. At the very bottom, there was a handwritten note in small letters. "Don't even think about leaving." My hands were shaking as I held the paper. I immediately called my friend. I begged him to let me stay the night. He said yes, of course. I grabbed a bag and snuck out of the apartment. I took the stairs. I was too scared I'd run into her at the elevator. I finally felt like I could breathe when I got to my friend's place. I told him everything. He said it sounded like I had a serious stalker. He told me I should call the police. I decided I would, right after I finished moving tomorrow. I slept in his guest room. In the middle of the night, I woke up thirsty and went to get a glass of water. I passed by the living room window and glanced outside. Under a streetlight down below, someone was standing there, looking up at the building. It was Chloe. I dropped to the floor. How'd she find me here? I hadn't told anyone the address. She couldn't possibly know where my friend lived. I woke my friend up and pointed, but when we looked, the street below was empty. "You sure you weren't dreaming?" my friend asked, rubbing his eyes. I didn't know anymore. I didn't sleep for the rest of the night. In the morning, the moving company called. They said they were waiting outside my old apartment. I told them to start without me. I'd be there later. An hour later, one of the movers called back. Sir, there's a woman here who says she's your girlfriend. She let us in and is telling us what to pack. My blood ran cold. I rushed over immediately. I saw the moving truck parked outside the building. Most of my things were already loaded. One of the movers saw me. Hey, your girlfriend is super helpful. She's not my girlfriend. I yelled, running up the stairs. Chloe was standing in my apartment, directing the movers with my last box. Put it down, I shouted. The movers froze. She turned to me, smiling, just making sure they didn't miss anything. I pulled her aside. What are you doing? Helping, she said, her face a mask of innocence. How did you get in? The door wasn't locked properly. The mover said you opened it for them. I challenged. She smiled. They must have misremembered. Everything was loaded onto the truck. I told the driver to get going fast. She stood at the entrance of the building, watching me. Where's the new place? She asked. None of your business. I'll find it, she said softly. The truck pulled away. In the rearview mirror, I watched her stand there, getting smaller and smaller until she was gone. I let out a long breath. The new apartment was in a better building, with strict security. I felt a little safer. I unpacked until midnight. I was exhausted but relieved as I fell into my new bed. In the middle of the night, my phone screen lit up. A text from an unknown number. Is the new bed comfortable? I shot up in bed. The apartment was dead silent. I tried calling the number back. Disconnected. I checked that the doors and windows were locked. I barely slept. The next morning, I was heading out for work. I met an older guy in the elevator, a neighbor. We nodded hello. He suddenly said, Hey, a pretty young lady was looking for you last night. Knocked on my door by mistake. I went rigid. What did she look like? Long hair, really pale. Said you two had plans. I mumbled a thanks. My heart was hammering against my ribs. She found me already. How? I was on edge all day. When I got back to my apartment building, I waved to the security guard. I asked casually, Did anyone stop by for me today? The guard checked the log. No visitors, sir. I felt a little relieved. The elevator reached my floor. As I stepped out, I saw a bag hanging on my doorknob. Just like before. Inside was a box of pastries. The note said, Housewarming gift. I immediately went back down to security and demanded to see the camera footage. The video showed a woman in a hat and sunglasses sneaking in during the afternoon. She took the fire escape. They never got a clear shot of her face. But the build was hers. I called the police. An officer came and took my statement. He took the pastries and the note as evidence. He said they would investigate, but it would be difficult. She hadn't actually harmed me. The next few days were quiet. I didn't see any other signs of her. I thought maybe she had given up. I started to let my guard down again. That weekend, I was in the building's laundry room. I was chatting with another resident from my floor. She mentioned that a few days ago, a woman had been asking about me. I told her I didn't know you, and she left. She was very pretty, but her eyes were a little blank. My anxiety spiked again. I went home and checked my security camera footage. Nothing unusual, but I couldn't shake the feeling that things in my apartment had been moved. The way my toothbrush was angled, the position of my slippers. Tiny, almost imperceptible changes. I told myself it was just my paranoia again, until I got sick with the flu and stayed home from work. I slept for most of the day. In a feverish haze, I felt someone touch my forehead. A cool hand. I forced my eyes open and saw a figure dart out of my bedroom. I chased after it, but the front door was already closing. The chain lock was still in place. It was impossible for anyone to have gotten in or out. I must have been dreaming. After I recovered, I had all the locks changed again. I changed all my passwords. I worked from home for a few days. One afternoon, during a video call, my internet started lagging. I checked my router settings and saw an unrecognized device connected to my network. An unknown phone. I immediately blocked it. I checked every day after that. Every day, a new, unrecognized device would try to connect. I had to upgrade my firewall and buy a business-grade router to finally stop it. She was even trying to hack my Wi-Fi. I started keeping a detailed log of every strange occurrence. Time, place, details. I was going to build a case and go back to the police. One day, I came home and found the doormat outside my apartment was damp, like someone had spilled water on it. I didn't think much of it. The next day, the mat was gone. I asked the cleaning staff. They said they hadn't taken it. I checked the security footage. It showed someone dressed as a janitor taking it, but their face was covered by a mask and a hat, a small frame. She even stole my doormat. Why? I decided to fight back. I posted some fake information on a platform she might be watching. To lure her out, I posted on Instagram that I was going to a remote park to go fishing over the weekend. In reality, I had a friend coming over. My friend came over and we played video games all day. That evening, after he left, I got a text. Didn't catch any fish, I see. Attached was a photo of the trash can in front of my building. Inside was the empty snack bag my friend had brought over. She had been waiting downstairs the whole time. She knew I never left. Fear turned to rage. I stormed downstairs. The street was empty. "Come out, Chloe!" I screamed into the empty air. No one responded. A few neighbors gave me strange looks. I stood there for a minute, panting. When I got back upstairs, I found an envelope in my mailbox. No stamp. It had been hand-delivered. Inside were the socks and the toothbrush I'd lost during my last move, and a printed photo. It was a picture of me sleeping in my bed. Judging by the angle, it had been taken from outside my bedroom window. But I live on the 10th floor. I finally broke. I took all my evidence to the police station. This time, they took it seriously. They sent officers back to my apartment with me. They found the remnants of a tiny landing gear from a drone stuck to the outside of my windowsill. She had been using a drone to spy on me. The police started a search for her, but her old apartment was empty. The landlord said she'd moved out. No forwarding address. The police said they would keep looking. They told me to be careful. I bought a baseball bat. I started carrying it with me, even inside my own home. Weeks went by with no news. I thought it was finally over. I tried to get back to a normal life. I even went on a date. A girl from work set me up. We had dinner, saw a movie. After I dropped her off, I went home. I found shattered glass on the floor in front of my door. It looked like a broken cup. I cut my hand while cleaning it up. As I was bandaging it, I heard a knock on the door. I looked through the peephole. It was Chloe. I immediately called 911. Then I opened the door and stared at her. "You finally came," I said. She smiled. "I missed you. The police are on their way." "I know," she said, taking a step forward. I took a step back. She held out a box. "Open it." I didn't move. She opened it herself. Inside were photos of me from every stage of my life. Some I hadn't even seen before. Childhood, school, my first job. "How do you have these?" "I've been collecting them," she said, gently stroking a photo. "I love you in every form." The police arrived and took her away. I gave my statement as the victim. They filed a case for harassment and trespassing, but they said they needed more for a criminal charge. She was released on bail, with a restraining order to stay away from me. I developed an anxiety disorder. I started seeing a therapist and taking medication. I filled my home with cameras and alarms. The slightest noise would jolt me awake. 2 months passed like this. She didn't show up again. I started to believe it was really, truly over. I began to lower my medication dosage. I tried to stop checking the locks 10 times before bed. On my birthday, I bought myself a cake. As I was about to blow out the candles, the doorbell rang. I looked through the peephole. A delivery guy. "Cake delivery for you." I hadn't ordered anything, but I took it. I opened the box. It wasn't a cake. It was an exquisite, detailed model of a house. A perfect replica of my apartment. Every piece of furniture was there. And on the bed in the bedroom, there was a tiny doll. It looked just like me. Underneath the model was a card. "Happy birthday. Our home will always be ready for you." I immediately called the police. They said they would talk to her. But the delivery guy said the order was placed by an old man. He paid in cash, so there was no record. There were no fingerprints on the model. She had vanished again. My mental state crumbled. My doctor increased my medication. My friends told me I needed to leave to move to a different city. I started looking into quitting my job. My company tried to convince me to stay. They suggested a transfer to a branch in another state. I agreed. I started the process. As I was packing, I was extra careful. I checked everything twice. In the inside pocket of an old suit jacket, I found a listening device. It was tiny, stuck to the lining. I had no idea how long it had been there. Probably for a very long time. That's how she knew everything. When I was planning to move, she intercepted the movers. When I said I was going fishing, she was waiting downstairs. My fear was her entertainment. I smashed the bug on the floor. I was starting over with nothing. The day I left, I took a winding route to the airport. I switched cabs 3 times. I changed my clothes, put on a hat and sunglasses in an airport bathroom, like a spy in a cheap movie. I didn't relax until the moment I boarded the plane. I canceled my old phone plan. This was a new life. I slept on the plane. I dreamed she was sitting next to me, smiling. I woke with a start. The cabin was quiet. Outside the window, there were clouds. When we landed, I turned on my new phone. New city, new number. Only my family and a few close friends had it. I moved into the temporary corporate housing my company had arranged. I finally felt safe. The first week was quiet. No strange incidents. I started my new job, met new colleagues, explored a new city. Life finally felt normal. That weekend, I went to the supermarket. I was reaching for a package of ramen when I saw a figure across the aisle. Long hair, pale skin. The ramen slipped from my hand. I looked again. It was just a stranger. I let out a breath. I laughed at myself for being so jumpy. I continued my shopping. Waiting in the checkout line, I felt like someone was watching me. I looked back. Just a crowd of people. I paid and walked out with my bags. As I was walking down the steps outside, my foot slipped. I nearly fell. Someone caught me from behind. "Careful," a woman's voice said. I said thanks and turned around, and I saw her smiling face. "We meet again, Ethan." My grocery bag fell from my hand. Everything scattered across the sidewalk. She helped me pick things up. "Where are you staying?" "I'll give you a ride." I backed away. "How did you find me?" "Fate," she said, handing me the bag. "Stay away from me." My voice was shaking. She just smiled. "This time, let's find a place with better soundproofing. You sound so lovely when you scream." I was frozen to the spot. My blood turned to ice. She bent down, calmly picking up the last of my groceries. She put them neatly back in the bag and handed it to me. "Are you scared?" she asked, tilting her head slightly. "It's just a coincidence." I took the bag. Our fingers brushed. Hers were cold. "How did you get here?" My voice was a dry whisper. "I followed you, silly," she said, as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. "The plane?" But I checked. "I was sitting 3 rows behind you when you switched gates," she smiled, wearing a wig and glasses. I tried to picture the crowds at the airport. I couldn't remember a thing. Fear squeezed my heart. "Don't follow me again." I tried to sound firm, but my voice trembled. She stepped closer and gently straightened my collar. "You don't get to choose, Ethan. You never did." I turned and walked away as fast as I could. It was almost a run. I glanced back. She wasn't following. She was just standing there, watching me, a smile on her face. Like a predator watching prey it knows can't escape. I flagged down a cab. I kept looking behind me, making sure she wasn't there. I got back to my apartment and triple-locked the door. I collapsed on the floor, gasping for air. My phone vibrated. An unknown number. "Your collar gets crooked when you run." I frantically tore my collar. I found a tiny metal stud. It wasn't part of the shirt. A bug. A tracker. I flushed it down the toilet. I didn't sleep a wink. The next day, I called in sick to work. I contacted the leasing office to break my lease. They refused. I offered to pay a massive penalty. They finally agreed. I started looking for a new place. This time, I looked for buildings with the highest level of security. I viewed a few places, but nothing felt safe enough. That afternoon, a package was delivered. It was a stack of printouts. Every apartment listing I had looked at online. She had circled their pros and cons in red ink, like a teacher grading a paper. On the last page, she wrote, "The security guard at apartment number 3 is a distant cousin of mine. Choose that one. It's safer." I tore the papers to shreds. I ended up choosing an apartment in the opposite direction of the city, an old building with no security. At least it wasn't one she had recommended. I moved that night. I didn't hire a company. I carried everything myself. The new place was on the ground floor. For a quick escape, I installed bars on the windows. I checked for bugs every single day. 2 weeks went by in peace. I almost believed she had given up, until a rainy night. I was woken by a tapping on my window. Tap, 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 rhythmic and patient. Through the rain-streaked glass, I saw a dark figure standing outside, holding something, gently tapping on the window. I grabbed my baseball bat. I crept closer to the window. The figure stopped moving. Slowly, it crouched down. It slid something through the bars on my window. Then it walked away. I turned on the porch light. On the floor was a waterproof pouch. Inside was a box of cold medicine. And a note. "The weather's turning. Don't catch a cold. It hurts my heart to hear you cough." I did have a slight cold. I had coughed a few times during the day. Where did she hear me, Did I still have a bug in my apartment? I tore the place apart. I found nothing. The next day, I went to the police. I showed them all the new evidence. They contacted the police in her hometown. Her family said they hadn't spoken to her in years, that she was unstable, but had no history of violence. The police said all they could do was issue another warning. I went home, defeated. I found a bag of bread hanging on my doorknob. My favorite brand. The note said, "Tough day at the station. Have a bite." She even knew I had gone to the police. I threw the bread against the wall. I decided I had to face her. I called the number. She picked up on the first ring. "You finally called me. I want to meet," I said. "Okay," she chuckled softly. We agreed to meet at a crowded coffee shop. I got there early. I chose a table against the wall, where I could see every entrance. She arrived right on time. She was wearing a light yellow dress. She looked like any other girl on a date. She sat down and smiled. "You've lost weight." "Why me?" I asked, cutting to the chase. "Because you need me," she said, stirring her coffee. "I don't need you." "You do," she said, looking up. Her gaze was intense. "You're lonely. You've moved 7 times, and you don't have a single close friend. You don't talk to your parents. Your coworkers are just coworkers. You wake up in the middle of the night, and you wish someone was there to touch you. I understand everything you want." A chill ran down my spine. She knew too much. "You know that because you've been spying on me." "I know that because I care," she corrected. "It's a crime. It's love." Her voice softened. "Ethan, I'm the only one who's ever really watched you. I'm the only one who remembers all your habits. You hate celery. You're afraid of the deep ocean, and the old injury on your right shoulder aches when it rains." She was right about all of it. Things even my own mother didn't know. "Stop," I said, my hand tightening around my cup. "Just let me in," she said softly. "We could get a cat. You've always wanted one, but you're afraid of the responsibility. I'll take care of it. You could just play with it." I should have gotten up and left. But for some reason, I didn't move. Maybe I was just too tired. Or maybe a small part of me was tempted. The feeling of being completely and totally known. It was terrifying, but was also alluring. Like standing naked in a snowstorm. Freezing but awake. "I will never hurt you," she said, reaching out. Her fingers gently touched mine. "I just want to make you happy. My way." I pulled my hand back. "Your way terrifies me." "You'll get used to it," she smiled. "Give me 1 week. If you're still not happy, I'll disappear forever." Against all my better judgment, I didn't say no. It started raining when we left the coffee shop. She produced an umbrella from her bag and held it over my head. I knew it was going to rain. "You always forget your umbrella." We walked back to my apartment. At the door, I told her to leave. She nodded. She pushed the umbrella into my hand. "See you tomorrow." She walked off into the rain. Her silhouette looked thin and frail. For a second, she almost looked pathetic. I shook the thought from my head. The next morning, breakfast was hanging on my doorknob. Warm chicken noodle soup and crackers. The note said, "You have a sensitive stomach. Eat this while it's hot." I threw it in the trash. I was distracted all day at work. When I got home, she was waiting for me outside my building. She was holding a grocery bag. "Can I cook dinner for you?" "No." I refused. "Then let's eat out." She pointed to a small ramen shop next door. I hesitated, then agreed. The restaurant was loud and crowded. She ate her noodles quietly. She didn't look like a stalker. She looked like the girl next door. "How'd you know I liked this place?" I asked. She smiled. "I have a record of all your takeout orders." I put down my chopsticks. "That's not funny. It's a fact," she said, wiping her mouth. "But you look cute when you frown." For the next few days, she showed up every day. She brought me food, waited for me after work, went on walks with me. Aside from her encyclopedic knowledge of my life, her behavior was normal. Polite even. My defenses started to lower. Maybe she really was just obsessively in love with me, without any real malice. On Friday, I had to work late. When I got home, she was sitting under a streetlight, feeding a stray cat. Her profile was soft in the dim light. She looked up when she saw me. "They remind me of you." Wary, but desperate for warmth. The cat rubbed against her ankle. She flinched slightly. "That tickles." In that moment, she just seemed like a normal girl. "Do you want to come up?" The words left my mouth before I could stop them. I immediately regretted it. But she shook her head. "Not tonight. You're tired. You need a rest." She handed me a Tupperware container. Scrambled eggs. Easy to digest. She turned and left. I went upstairs holding the container. I took a bite. It tasted surprisingly homemade. It tasted like the way I vaguely remember my mom's cooking. That weekend, she asked me to go to the park. I actually went. I watched her feed pigeons, and for a moment, it felt like a normal date. If you ignored the fact that she knew everything about me, including my underwear size. Don't be so tense, she said suddenly. I'm not. You were holding your breath, she said, scattering more birdseed. You'll make yourself dizzy. At lunch, she laid out a picnic blanket. Everything she unpacked was something I liked. She even had an ice-cold Coke, my favorite brand. How do you do it? I asked. You just have to pay attention, she said, pouring the soda. The bubbles fizzed. It rained on the way home. We were huddled close under the same umbrella. I could smell a faint, clean scent on her. Not perfume, just soap. Did you have fun today? She asked. I grunted. Good. When we got to my building, she turned to leave. I grabbed her wrist and then immediately let go. Come on up. Her eyes lit up. Can I? Just for a little while, I said. It was the first time she'd been inside my new place. She sat nervously on the edge of the sofa, looking around. This place gets good light. You always liked south-facing rooms. I handed her a glass of water. She took a small sip. We talked about everything and nothing. She was surprisingly knowledgeable. She even brought up a point from my college thesis that she found interesting. You even read my thesis? I requested it from the library archives, she smiled. It was very well written, even if your grade wasn't that high. Late that night, she got up to leave. As she was going, she said softly, Thank you for today. I haven't been this happy in a long time. I couldn't sleep that night. I kept thinking about her sparkling eyes and the way she had pulled her hand back when she was leaving. She had wanted to touch me, but she had stopped herself. The next day, I asked her out to a movie, a horror movie. She covered her eyes during the gory parts, peeking through her fingers. Like a little kid, I couldn't help but laugh. What's so funny, she mumbled. You weren't like this when you were scaring me. That's different, she said, lowering her hands. If you're scared, my heart hurts. The people in the movie are fake. It doesn't matter. After the movie, she bought ice cream. She handed me the vanilla. It was buy one, get one free. She knew I only ate vanilla. We walked back to my place side by side. When we got to my door, she started to say goodbye out of habit. I stopped her. Come on up. Her eyes were shining under the streetlights. Ethan, just for some tea, I said, turning to unlock the door. My hands were shaking. As the tea steeped, she sat across from me. Your heart is beating very fast, she said suddenly. Huh, about 110 beats per minute, she said, pointing to her ear. I can hear it. I put down my teacup. Is that another one of your skills? Only for you, she smiled. I didn't know whether to be flattered or terrified. She didn't leave that night. She slept on the sofa, fully clothed. When I woke up in the morning, she had already made breakfast. Perfectly cooked eggs. How are you good at everything? I marvel. I learned it for you, she said, wiping a plate. Ever since I found out you like your eggs runny. Life continued in a strange, yet stable, rhythm. She seeped into every crack of my life. But she never brought up the surveillance again. We were like a normal couple. If you ignored the fact that she occasionally blurted out one of my deepest, darkest secrets. Does it hurt? She asked, gently touching the old scar on my right shoulder. It was a rainy day, and it was aching. A little. She got some pain relief patches and carefully applied one. From now on, I'll put one on for you every time it rains. I took her hand. Chloe, yes. Why me? She looked down for a long moment. Because you were the only one who was ever kind to me, when everyone else ignored me. I pressed her for details, but she wouldn't say more. I'll tell you someday. She smiled and kissed my forehead. It was light as a feather, but my heart was pounding. I gradually got used to having her around. I even began to depend on her. There was someone to wait for me after work. A light on when I got home. Food that was always exactly what I wanted. She remembered every single one of my preferences. She was a partner tailor-made for me, although sometimes it was still unnerving. Like when she produced a toy I had lost in childhood. How do you have this? I saw it at a flea market, she said, her eyes flickering. I didn't ask again. My company planned a corporate retreat where we could bring a guest. After much hesitation, I invited her. She beamed, nodding like a child who had just received a gift. The retreat was at a beach resort. She looked stunning in a swimsuit. A few of my male co-workers glanced at her a little too long. She immediately hid behind me. Are you okay? I asked. I don't like the way they look at me, she whispered. I only want you to look at me. That evening, at the barbecue, she cooked all my food for me, to my exact specifications. My coworkers told me I was a lucky guy. She just smiled and leaned her head on my shoulder. I'm the lucky one. That night on the balcony of our room, she pointed to a distant lighthouse. Doesn't that look like you? Lighting the way for people like me. What kind of people are you? I asked, putting my arm around her. Lost people, she whispered. But I'm found now. She kissed me. It tasted of sea salt and desperation, like she was trying to consume me. I kissed her back. That was the night we were truly together for the first time. She cried. A lot. Did I hurt you? I asked, worried. I'm just so happy, she sobbed into my chest. I finally have you. I woke in the middle of the night. She was awake, watching me in the moonlight. Her fingers were tracing the outline of my face in the air. Why aren't you sleeping? I'm afraid I'll wake up and this will all be a dream, she whispered. We moved in together after the trip. She had shockingly few belongings. You barely have any stuff. All I need is you, she said, looking around the apartment. Besides, everything I need is already here. She was talking about my things, and it was true. She fit into my life seamlessly, as if she had always been meant to be there. Life was sweet, but also suffocating. She was attentive to a fault, and she was everywhere. She quit her job to stay home all day. When I got home from work, she would always be waiting right at the door, like a puppy waiting for its owner. Did you miss me today? She'd ask, clinging to me. Yes, I'd say, ruffling her hair. How much? She'd press. Every minute of every day, I said, learning the script. But gradually, I started to feel smothered, like a fish in a bowl. She was too clingy, and she controlled every detail, down to the color of my socks. We're the gray ones. They match your shirt. She'd hold out the perfectly coordinated outfit I put on. At work, she'd text me every 10 minutes. Have you had water? Is your neck sore? Get up and stretch. I miss you. My coworkers joked that we were in the honeymoon phase. I just forced a smile. I had to be home on time. If I was even a few minutes late, she would call, her voice on the verge of tears. I thought something happened to you. I tried to talk to her. I need a little space. Her eyes immediately filled with tears. Are you tired of me? No, but a healthy relationship needs some distance. She looked down for a long time. Okay. For the next few days, she tried to control herself. She texted less. She didn't pick out my clothes. But I could see her wilting, like a flower without water. My heart ached for her. Just be yourself, I finally said. She immediately perked up. Really? Then you should wear this today. And it was worse than before. The most alarming incident was when a female coworker got a ride home with me. Chloe saw it. She didn't say anything. But that night, I found that all the buttons on my dress shirts had been sewn shut. The stitches were tiny, meticulous, and obsessive. Why? I asked her. She smiled. The buttons were loose. I was just reinforcing them for you. Tell me the truth. Tears suddenly streamed down her face. She touched your cufflink. I saw her. She was just handing me a file. Her fingers touched you, she screamed. Then she immediately started apologizing. I am sorry. I can't help it. That night, she cleaned the house obsessively, punishing herself. She accidentally burned her hand on the stove. I took her to a therapist. She was cooperative and polite. The diagnosis was obsessive-compulsive personality disorder with paranoid tendencies. The doctor recommended therapy. She agreed in front of the doctor. When we got home, she tore up the diagnosis. I'm not sick. I just love you too much. She knelt by the bed, looking up at me. You don't like me like this, do you? I'll change, I promise. I looked at her burned hand. My resolve softened. We'll take it slow. She rubbed her cheek against my palm. Then you have to promise you'll never leave me. Because if you do, I'll die. 71 one day, I found a drawer filled with all my lost items. The old keychain, the single socks, even the childhood toy. It wasn't a coincidence. She had stolen them all. I confronted her. She admitted it without hesitation. I wanted keepsakes. For the time when you weren't mine yet. I should have been furious. But strangely, I felt a sense of satisfaction. To be needed this desperately. It was like an addiction. Terrifying, but I was sinking deeper. She was my sweet shadow. My warm prison. 72, my company wanted to transfer me to another branch for 3 months. It was a great opportunity, but I knew she would never agree to it. I brought up cautiously. Her face immediately went pale. Do you have to go? It would be good for my career. What about me? Her voice trembled. You could come with me. I don't know anyone there, she said, hugging her knees. I'll be even more scared. Scared I might hurt a stranger. Or hurt myself. It was a veiled threat. I ended up turning down the transfer. She cooked a feast to celebrate. That night, she was especially passionate. She kept confirming it over and over. You gave up so much for me. That means you'll never, ever leave me, right? 73, I started having nightmares. I dreamed I was trapped in a spider's web, and she was the spider at the center, gently stroking me, telling me she loved me. I would wake with a jolt and see her sleeping peacefully next to me. She looked so sweet and innocent, nothing like the creature in my dream. Maybe I was the one who was sick, enjoying this extreme form of possession. Because besides her, who else had ever loved me like this? Even my own parents thought I was mediocre. But to her, I was a treasure, even if her way of showing it was twisted. 74, I found out she was taking pictures of me while I slept. It wasn't the first time. Her phone had thousands of pictures of me in various states. Sleeping, eating, working, even just frowning at my computer. Delete them, I said. She deleted them in front of me. But the next day, I found them backed up to the cloud. She apologized meekly. I just can't help but want to save every moment of you, so I can remember when we're old. We had another huge fight. I stormed out and got a hotel room. She called me incessantly. My inbox was flooded with her messages. They ranged from apologies to threats. I can't live without you. You'll regret this. 75, I was worried she would do something stupid. I went home in the middle of the night. I found her in the bathroom. She had cut her wrist. It wasn't deep, but there was blood everywhere. I just wanted to feel some pain, she said with a pale smile. It's better than the pain in my heart. I took her to the hospital. As the nurse was bandaging her arm, she clung to my hand. Don't leave me. I'll die. The nurse looked at me with a mixture of pity and blame, like I was the villain who had broken this poor girl's heart. In that moment, I felt a sense of resignation. Maybe this was my life now, entangled with her until one of us died. It was better than having a death on my conscience. 76, after I completely surrendered, things became peaceful. She sensed my resignation, and she became more gentle, like a wild animal that had finally been tamed. She wasn't so tense anymore. She allowed me to have some time to myself, although it was still under her control. But her methods were more subtle, like coincidentally showing up at my office, becoming friends with my coworkers, effortlessly integrating herself into my social circle. She even managed my relationships for me. Everyone said what a perfect, thoughtful girlfriend I had. Only I knew that every text I received, she had already screened. Every invitation I got, she had already approved. 77, she learned to copy my handwriting. She would sign documents for me. She learned to imitate my voice on the phone. She was practically becoming a second me. Sometimes I felt like I was being replaced, but it was also strangely comforting, like being a child, completely taken care of. No freedom, but also no responsibility. On a rainy day, she applied the pain patch to my shoulder. Her movements were gentle. Still hurt. Much better. She leaned her head on my shoulder. We'll be like this forever, right? Yeah. Outside, the rain pattered against the window. She started humming a song, a nursery rhyme I had once mentioned I liked as a child. She even remembered that. 78, I started to actively cooperate with her care. I would tell her my schedule in advance. I would voluntarily send her pictures throughout the day. I could see her visibly relax. She stopped checking up on me so frequently. She even bought me a new video game console. I saw you watching reviews for it. Go ahead and play. I'll watch you. She would sit next to me while I played, occasionally feeding me a piece of fruit. Her fingers would gently brush my lips. There's a prize if you win. I found myself playing with a childish intensity, desperate to beat the game for her. The prize was a kiss. It was as sweet as honey. 79, she signed up for a cooking class. I was her taste tester. She went from burnt cookies to a perfect souffle in just 2 weeks. Are you a genius? I asked, amazed. Nothing is hard if I'm learning it for you, she said, smiling, a smudge of flour on her cheek. I helped her tie her apron from behind. I wrapped my arms around her. I felt her tremble slightly. What's wrong? It's the first time you've ever hugged me first, she said, her voice choked with emotion. I felt a pang of guilt and tightened my arms. I'll hug you every day from now on. She turned and buried her face in my chest. Cross your heart. 80, I introduced her to my parents. She spent a week cleaning and preparing. She memorized all of my parents' likes and dislikes. She even had the specific brand of tea my dad liked. My mother couldn't stop praising her. She's more thoughtful than you are. My dad gave me a discreet thumbs up. Chloe was as happy as a child who had just been praised. That night, she counted the money my mother had given her as a meeting gift. Your mom likes me. Of course she likes you, I said, ruffling her hair. Because I love you. She threw her arms around my neck. Say it again. I love you. Who loves who? Ethan loves Chloe. 81, she gradually became brave enough to go out by herself. To buy me gifts. The first time, she came back with a crooked, hand-woven bracelet. I made it myself. It's a little ugly. I immediately put it on. It's not ugly. It's the best. Her eyes sparkling. She made a matching one for herself. We wore them when we went out. She would constantly touch the bracelet on my wrist, as if to confirm it was still there. Afraid I'll take it off? I teased. Afraid you'll get lost? She whispered. I won't, I said, squeezing her hand. I can lose anything else, but I won't lose you. 82, I got a bad flu. She stayed up all night, changing the cold towel on my forehead. She made me soup, blowing on each spoonful to cool it down before feeding it to me. You must be exhausted, I said, my voice hoarse. She shook her head. When you're in pain, I'm in more pain. I wish I could be sick for you. She had said things like this many times before, but this time it felt real. After I got better, I took her on vacation. It was her first time on a plane. She gripped my hand tightly. Scared. Not when I'm with you, she said, leaning on my shoulder. As she looked out the window at the sea of clouds, she whispered, It's like a dream. If it is, don't ever let me wake up. 83 at the beach, she finally wore a swimsuit. She had always been self-conscious about a scar on her back. I told her over and over again how beautiful she was. She slowly started to open up. She even let me take pictures of her. Try to smile naturally, I teased. She threw a seashell at me. Her laughter mixed with the sound of the waves. That night, we set off fireworks. She wrote our names in the sand, and then quickly erased them with her foot. Afraid someone will see. Afraid the good luck will run out, she said, blushing. I wrote, Ethan loves Chloe in the sand, and let the tide wash it away. Now the whole world knows. 84, when I proposed, she cried so hard she couldn't breathe. She kept taking the ring off and putting it back on. Is this real? It's real. That night, she knitted a tiny pouch for the ring. She was afraid it would get scratched. She insisted on a small, simple wedding. Only our closest family and friends. During the vows, she was shaking so much she couldn't speak. I ended up reciting her vows for her. I do, she whispered. Her voice was soft but firm. When it was time to toss the bouquet, she just walked over and handed it to her best friend. I have to hold on to my luck. I can't share it. 85. Right now, she's sleeping next to me. Her fingers are still tangled in the hem of my shirt, as if she's afraid I'll disappear. The moonlight shines on the old scar on her back. I lean over and gently kiss it. In her sleep, she snuggles closer. Love you. I know. I whisper, holding her tight. Go to sleep. Her breathing evens out. She's smiling in her dream. Maybe this was always our fate. She chased me with obsession. I stayed because of loneliness. But in the end, we found the perfect distance for us. Like two crooked trees, leaning on each other until we became a forest.